Hello, patrons. This is actually my second time pressing record on this one. I've got my stale coffee from this morning. I just went for a run. It's been warming up in New York City, which is bringing new sensations in the body. It feels like spring is coming. It hasn't even snowed a single time this winter. It hasn't really felt much like winter at all. And the run outside, it's like over 60 degrees Fahrenheit today. Has me feeling, I don't know. I feel different, and it's like a nice, light, happy feeling. So I've actually tried to do this before, and I ended up cutting it out of the podcast, but I want to talk about Osho and his controversies, and I just want to share my perspective about Osho, particularly because there's a lot of controversy around him, and our culture is kind of obsessed with controversy. And it's like, as soon as there is someone to listen to, it feels like there's also a temptation to dig into their past and figure out how to cancel them and invalidate what they're saying. Obviously, you're probably aware of Wild Wild Country, the documentary about Osho. And by the way, JS and Nico on the Patreon asked questions about Osho's controversies, the commune, some of his positions on certain things. And there's hesitancy. There's a general hesitancy to maybe even consider Osho's wisdoms and perspectives, to buy his books, etc., because of all these controversies. So this has been difficult for me to address because there is a lot of controversy about Osho, and if you tackle this issue directly from the Western mind, it's going to be pretty easy to just dismiss Osho and cancel him and consider him to be a bad man and therefore consider his teachings irrelevant. If he did or said bad things, let's just throw out the baby with the bathwater. Ram Dass loves that saying, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Let me just first talk freely, and this is a safe space, so just allow me to explore. Let's explore together. I've had an issue with cancel culture in general for a long time. Now, and I participated in it. I went to a liberal arts college, and I was part of this vortex of just like, once somebody is said to have done something bad, just immediately jump on the bandwagon of people calling them evil, canceling them, saying they need to be punished, whatever. I've participated in that culture, and slowly I kind of grew out of it, and now I'm at a point where I don't participate in it at all. Generally I'm concerned with my being here, like where I am and who's around me, and when I'm having experiences with people directly, how are those vibrations? I'm not really interested in even thinking about what somebody out there has done to somebody else or what they have said. It's irrelevant to me. And I think putting so much energy into being angry at someone way out there that I don't even know who said something or did something, it just doesn't feel in alignment with my purpose. I'd rather focus on my own life, my own meditation, my own journey. I want to find my highest good, and I want to associate with people who are kind of matching this vibration. That's my concern. And then, what I feel a lot on social media, where a lot of this canceling is taking place, is it's just nobody is actually thinking. People are generally just hearing from someone else that something happened and then joining this sort of mob mentality to cancel somebody. And it's just it just feels like a low vibration and something I don't really care to participate in. That's kind of this is like, I'm almost like, I feel like cancel culture and this like fear of saying the wrong thing. It's like it's a big sensitive spot in our culture. It's like, I almost feel like there's a fear to openly talk and express yourself, because we have come to this agreement that I don't agree with, that like everything you say out loud is part of this like permanent record that's like defining your character. But as I've traversed the spiritual path, it's like, oh, there is no list of characteristics, and the list of things that someone has said or someone has done is, once it's even possible to put them in a list, it's in the past, and that person is a new person. And I'm not saying like, there are certainly people in this world, I can think of one in my head right now, that I don't want to associate with, because there's a bad energy, a bad vibration. But I'm not like having this list in my head and therefore canceling them. It's more like an intuitive feeling that there's a misalignment. And even as I do that, I'm not this person I have in my head who I don't care to associate with anymore, because there's a bad energy, a bad vibration. I don't think they're a shitty person, even though they've done some shitty things. I don't think they're a shitty person. I have empathy. I see that they're on a path that has taken them to a certain place and made them have certain behaviors. And it's like, it's not my place to hate them, to cancel them. It's only my place to set my own boundaries and to gravitate towards people that are in alignment. That's my job. My job is not to overextend and hate someone or cancel them, nor judge their moral character. It feels like icky territory for me. And like, to be totally honest, it's like this feels like such a sensitive thing in our culture that I'm like scared to talk. And I think this is like a normal feeling in our culture. I'm guessing like this fear of just like speaking openly. I think there's probably a lot of filtering going on to make sure we're saying the right thing. I think this kind of came up in the last episode about intuition. Like, the question we addressed was, what if your intuition calls for you to do something immoral or unethical? And my kind of spiritual perspective on this is that like, morality is defined by the ego, and it shouldn't really be a consideration. Like, if you follow your intuitive heart in this moment, morality doesn't really exist. Like, when you respond authentically, that's the truth. There's nothing else. Betraying the truth is doing these calculations for ego. And even if you're calculating based on morality, that is getting in the way of the true action that is needed in that moment. Right? Morality is defined by ego, the collective culture. It's this complicated thing, right? I think the same goes for speech. It's like trying to calculate whether what you say is going to get you canceled it's a filter. It's blocking. Something is coming to you that wants to be said, and worrying about whether you're going to be canceled is this filter. I don't think we should be taking words so seriously. It's like nobody is claiming that everything that comes out of their mouth should go on their resume of who they are, you know? Speech should be a play like anything else. It should be we shouldn't have fear of talking. And it's like the cancel culture creates a fear of talking, and it creates, I don't know, it makes a weird filtering effect. That's why I think it's like important to have safe communities within this culture where like we can say, okay, like we can actually talk about everything here. And I really appreciate, everyone who made these comments about Osho for acting so gently, like a lot of people do, particularly like when you're posting publicly on social media. It's like, I'll share something from an Osho book, and then it's like somebody will take a jab, like, how could you share something from this guy who did this, right? Yeah, this is a very complicated and sensitive one. Now, let's talk about Wild Wild Country a little bit. So I'm not watching this movie trying to judge Osho's character. I think when you watch the film, it's like that is a question they're posing. The question is Osho a good or a bad person? Now, I think judging whether things are good or bad is something that keeps us stuck in our egos. The releasing the concept of good or bad is very, very freeing, and that applies to judging another human being. Now, I could judge whether every decision I make is good or bad for my life, and that's going to put me in a very anxious, calculating spiral about where my future is going, because am I making good or bad decisions for myself? Every time I meet somebody, I could be wondering, are they good or bad? Are they going to be a good or bad friend? Are they a good or bad person? But that is, it's adding an intellectual layer that I really don't think is real, and I don't think it's helpful. Again, I think you can sink into your intuition, right? Now, accessing your intuition, as we discussed, requires a cutting through the layers of ego. You need to really see someone. You need to really know them. And this is not easy to do because of our ego, because of our cultural upbringing. We are taught from childhood that things are good and bad. I mean, like when you're a little kid and you do something wrong, your parent will tell you that's bad. And when you do something right, like an example for me is when I got good grades, I was told that that's really good. When I got bad grades, I was taught that that's really bad. So we're trained to think in this way. So it doesn't surprise me that our culture is obsessed with controversy and whether people are good or bad, moral or immoral. It's not surprising at all, but if you want to access your intuition, I do think there needs to be a cutting through that. My experience with watching Wild Wild Country, so I was totally unaware of who Osho was before watching this movie. I actually just got a random recommendation to watch this movie. And watching Wild Wild Country is what made me decide to start reading Osho. And I think this is probably not the most common response in our culture, but watching the movie actually gave me a really positive feeling about Osho. Now, this is me. This is my experience. I'm not saying you need to feel this way too. I'm not defending Osho. I'm not defending anything he said or his actions. I'm just saying when I watched the film, I got a good feeling in my heart. I was actually excited to read his books. For me, it was really seeing how people on his commune looked. I thought they looked happy, joyous. I thought they seemed free. I thought the meditations that they were doing looked really cool and interesting and sometimes euphoric. I remember the scene about the yearly festival, where people fly in and it's a big party. I thought that scene was really, really beautiful. There was a song that played in it by Damien Jurado called, what was it called? It goes like, "It was you all along." Please don't unfollow me for singing. Or you can. It's probably called All Along. Anyways, that scene made me emotional. I was like, this thing seems pretty beautiful. And then, okay, my brain is it's not really functioning in terms of good or bad anymore. But if I force myself to go back there are certainly bad things that happened in the commune, right? And Osho was the guru behind the commune. So of course you naturally are like, okay, he started the commune, these bad things happened, therefore he's bad, canceled, That's natural, right? And right, if I put my head there again, it's some pretty bad things happen, people on the commune, particularly when there was this fight to make the commune a city and start getting into the state office in Oregon, whatever, they needed votes and everything. Some bad things happened, community was poisoned, the water supply was poisoned, there were fire bombs, bad things happened, I still have access to that part of my brain that can be okay, that's violent acts, those are bad, But, and I'm gonna go into my Western brain here a little bit and play the logical defense, right? Which I wanted to try to avoid, but I'm gonna do it anyway. I feel like it's not clear watching the movie whether Osho was aware or condoned any of those things, right? Here's the danger about even getting into a logical defensive argument is that, someone can hear me say that, then go analyze the film, and maybe I missed something, maybe there was some evidence that Osho was aware. Whatever, I don't care. What I remember when I watched the film, it seemed like there was it seemed to me like Osho had a very good intention. I think his intention is actually to awaken the entire society, to create a society that is essentially utopian, peaceful, loving, free. And he wanted to do that by starting a commune and spreading those vibrations of freedom throughout. And they began to take a practical route of trying to get into politics and really spread this kind of community. And obviously, when you try to do that, you're going to face resistance. And in that resistance is where there was a lot of tension. And through that tension arose some violent acts. My understanding when I watched the film is that Osho was in a period of silence when all of these things happened. He was not associating with anybody, not speaking with anybody. And part of his leadership went and did some violent shit. And the commune wasn't totally pure, And then, if we follow on the defensive, if I keep going down the defending of Osho track, which I think is irrelevant, but I'm entertaining it. I think, how can you say something bad that someone else did? How can you say that someone else is responsible for something bad that someone else did? They might have taken his lessons the wrong way. They filtered it through their own egos. They're autonomous individuals. I don't think you can necessarily attribute the behavior of a follower totally to the behavior of a leader, because at the end of the day, individuals are autonomous. So that's a logical track, right? Which you'll be able to refute what I'm saying. We can argue about it, but I don't think that's the point. The point is, for me, I got a good feeling in my heart, I have not heard, and I'm very gracious. I have not heard something that Osho has said, nor have I read something that he has written that made me believe in my heart that I should no longer listen to him. Now, I'm not really someone who is entertaining any sort of hearsay, right? So if he is quoted to have said something, if someone said he had said something, if someone said he did something, I'm not going to take that into my heart because that's filtered through their ego. What's important to me, and again, I'm not trying to convince you of anything. This is just my experience. What's important to me is how I feel in my heart, right? And I have a good feeling in my heart about Osho. Watching the controversial film that makes a lot of people dismiss Osho gave me a good feeling in my heart. It made me excited to actually dive into his wisdom. I was like, how did he get all these people acting this way on this commune? I'm actually curious. The vision of that enlightened society was inspiring to me. I got curious. I had a good feeling in my heart. And then the first book I picked up by Osho was Intimacy. And when I'm reading a book, I'm not filtering through what the culture has told me about Osho. I'm just reading the words. I'm having essentially I'm present while I'm reading this. I'm not doing these. I'm just letting the words come into my heart, right? I'm not adding this layer of, Osho's maybe a bad guy, I should take this with a grain of salt. No, I'm just right here on the page reading the words, right? And so if a phrase or a passage or the book resonates with me, I'm not putting that through a filter. I'm just letting it come into my heart. That's the kind of openness and like innocence that I'm trying to walk around the world with. I'm not trying to, in general, what is the journey of awakening about? It's about not listening to what the culture is telling you, to how the culture is telling you to see things. It's about coming into your own heart and seeing it for yourself, right? Seeing life with clear eyes for the first time. That's essentially what I have done with Osho. And frankly, and I'm not saying he has not ever said anything questionable. I'm sure he has. I'm not actually putting energy into researching to find something irredeemable, I'm just here with the message, trusting in my heart. And for me, nothing has blocked me from the message, and the message has come into my heart and cracked it open. And this book in particular has changed my life. And these wisdoms have opened me so much that I want to read what he has to say about other aspects of life. And that's kind of it. It's kind of irrelevant to me if the culture paints him out to be a bad guy. If something comes into my awareness that makes all of his wisdom irredeemable, I will follow that for myself. And you should all follow that for yourself. Like if something in the movie took you to a point where you just can't, You just can't do it. You can't listen to Osho. You believe in your heart truly, through the veil of the culture and how the movie tried to portray him and how other writers are trying to portray him and how others are talking about him through all those veils. If you feel in your heart that you should not listen to Osho, then you shouldn't. Right? But for me, I stayed open because nothing closed me, right? I stayed open because nothing closed me. I'm very forgiving. I think people make mistakes. I think people are redeemable. It's very hard, if not impossible, for me personally to actually completely dismiss someone. I'm an optimist. I believe in the goodness of people's hearts. And I think if someone is acting in like a evil way, I think they're acting out of suffering, and I feel bad for them. I still think in everybody there is a good heart. But when we get too lost in our ego, that good heart can get buried deep, deep down. We can get into power struggles. We fight, we commit violence, we fight wars, all of these things because our good hearts are buried deep, deep down by ego, the need to prove oneself, the need to prove oneself superior, the need to be better than others in order to affirm where you're at. I think underneath that all, there's a good heart in everybody. And for me, like, I don't know, like Osho's good heart came through to me. Like yeah. And I'm like still scared saying all this, that like I'm going to get canceled, but I don't think I care. I don't think that's the direction we should be going in. I think like, I don't know, tricky conversations like this are too often avoided because we are scared of being canceled, of being wrong. But like, we should all be on the side of truth. Like, we all want to know the truth. We all want to figure out how to be loving, joyous, and peaceful. So really, we're all on the same side. And look, I could be making a mistake. You could be making a mistake. But we're on the same team, and we're trying to go towards the peak of the mountain together. And I certainly think Osho was trying to do the same. I'm out of breath, and my voice squeaked because I'm nervous. Another thing I wanted to bring up was that, sorry, I keep bumping the table. Trungpa is a controversial figure. One time I actually didn't know Ram Dass had any controversy. One time I brought up how excited I was that I discovered Ram Dass to somebody, and they were like, "Isn't Ram Dass problematic?" Sam Harris's meditation app was huge for my spiritual awakening. And I had not dug into Sam Harris. It's like people have this thing that they do where they like dig into who someone is before they like even will engage in a conversation with them. And it's like the conversation exists here and now, right? Like when I was listening to those guided meditations by Sam Harris, I wasn't thinking about what kind of person that was. I was just listening to the meditations. I was, in an effort to meditate, trying to just be present. And if you take the perspective of meditation, it's like your judgments about people, the fear that they are bad people and what that means for you and whether you should listen to their message, you can see those as clouds too, right? Those are clouds that are in the way of presence. And I'm not saying like blindly go follow what anybody is saying, but it's like, I don't know, if there's a gravity, like you can trust yourself. Like if someone is really truly bad, and again, I say that hesitantly because I don't think I believe in good or bad anymore. trust that your heart is going to know who to stop following, right? And what's cool is, like, I don't need to tell you that you have to listen to Osho just because he has helped open my heart, because there are so many spiritual teachers saying the same things in different ways. You know, for me, there's been Ram Dass was absolutely huge, right? And that friend I told about him was like, isn't Ram Dass problematic? Trungpa has been huge. I know Trungpa has controversy. My therapist was like, wasn't Trungpa like a bad guy? Alan Watts. Oh, I think Alan Watts has controversy too, because he like maybe killed himself. Trigger warning, sorry. My my point was, like, pretty much every spiritual leader who has blown my earth away, like blown my ego apart and opened my heart to the beauties of reality, of true reality and true perception. All of these people, if you ask the right person, are irredeemable, are canceled. And it's like, who are you going to listen to? And I'm like starting to have this feeling that, like, digging into everything somebody has said in order to find something irredeemable, it's kind of a way, it's kind of an excuse to stay stuck. Because, like, if the message of truth is hitting, and if that message is the truth and it's hitting you in your heart, and then you hear that someone quoted someone and they said something a little dicey, you're going to dismiss the whole message of truth because of that, maybe just a mistake, a lapse in judgment. We all make mistakes, you know? And I'm like, it is like canceling a weird way. It's like a weird way to stay stuck. And it's like, if you're not too attached to your ego, like, what are you doing canceling anybody? Like, shouldn't you be worried about serving the world and finding your highest purpose and spreading the love? Like, what are you canceling people for, you know? And so I again, I want to acknowledge how gentle the questions were on the Patreon, and I'm not saying anyone here is trying to cancel anybody, but I have heard that, like, this sentiment does exist, right? And I think it's this sentiment that creates a lot of hesitancy. It's like, we can be scared to listen to someone's teachings, right? Because of this cancel culture that's out there. You know, we don't want to listen to somebody that the culture has deemed canceled, because then what does that say about us? And then there's fear. There's ego-based fear there, you know? Whew, that was a doozy. Yeah, and like, you know how I was like in that logical defensive mode, like saying like, oh, you can't really tell on the commune, like if it was Osho, like if that was the bad seed, or if it was another person in the commune. I have written in my notes app like specific things that Osho is accused of and like how I reason through them, but I actually think it's like, it's not my job to defend actually at all. I think that is going down in vibration. Like, if I sit here and try to defend all of these controversies, I'm dropping in vibration, but I want to stay up here. And address things from a place of truth. I don't want to get into a fight. Like really at the end of the day, it's up to you. And if Osho isn't working for you because of your journey and where you are, then find another teacher. You know, there are many teachers. Oh yeah, and another thing I wanted to say is like, I'm not one to like fall completely into someone's lap, right? It's like I'm in an Osho kick right now, certainly, but you should have seen my Ram Dass kick, and you should have seen my Trungpa kick. And it's like I am taking pieces from everybody, right, to form my own belief. So I'm not telling anyone to like blindly fall into someone's lap. I'm sure it can do good if you really find a teacher you love to like go all in on their perspectives. If they're lined up with your heart and if they open your heart and if they show you the truth. But for me, right, it's like I don't need Osho to be a saint because I'm not his follower. I'm not anybody's follower. I'm taking bits and pieces from different human experiences, applying them to my own experience, coming up with my own version of the truth, right? And I think it's like that's kind of what we should all be doing. We're all on our own paths and taking the pieces that work for us and that help us see the truth. Yeah, and then, okay, last thing I'll say on the defensive note is like, try to read his books without thinking about the cultural image of Osho. Like, try to only listen to what has come out of his being, not other people's projections of his being, but what has come out of his being, because as I have done that, it's been nothing but beauty, nothing but grace, kindness, a beautiful vision for humanity. And it has opened my own heart and made my life better, in the realms of love, relationships with other people, friends and lovers and family. In the realm of creativity, it's opened me to find my true purpose in my art. It's helped. Osho's words have helped me live more fearlessly, more in tune with myself. They have helped me, drop many, many, many societal mappings for my family. His words have helped me fall in tune with myself, right? So that's my ramble. That's my ramble about that. And again, I'm not up here trying to defend my position. It's not that at all. I'm just here sitting with my legs crossed, like expressing and expressing and expressing. And even though we're dealing with a sensitive cultural topic, I'm trying to just let it come out of me. And I'm open to being, I want to say I'm open to being wrong, but like, I don't think there is a wrong. I think we're all just trying. Let's all just try together. And thank you again. Thank you again, JS and Nico, for asking about this. It's it's an interesting one. And if there are any more thoughts here, please share them. And if you still feel like Osho is not it for you, that's totally fine. That's totally fine, I think the priority is peace, love, and joy. I don't think it's about being right and wrong. I think we all want to find peace, love, and joy and harmony, right? Whew. And then I want to play. So that's that. I just tried to. My answer is not concise. I am not perfect, but I found a clip by Sadhguru. So I've seen some Sadhguru clips here and there on YouTube, and some stuff has really resonated. I've never read a Sadhguru book or anything like that, but he seems like a wise guy to me, right? My heart feels good about it. And Sadhguru kind of addressed Osho's controversy. And I'm just going to actually play the audio for you. I'm going to listen to it myself, and then I'm going to put that audio in HD here. I'll leave credit to the video in the description. Right, I'm coming from the Western mind. It's like trying to come up with my answer to this. It felt very choppy. I did my best. I'm like nervous. I didn't say the right things. I'm nervous what you're all going to think because I'm not completely enlightened. I'm not yet completely confident path. I'm walking my path. I'm trying to figure it out. That's how I feel. That was my expression about it. But I want you to listen to this one, which I resonated with very much. And then we'll move on to the next topic of this episode. But here is Sadhguru.
One mistake that repeatedly spiritual teachers have done around the world is they want to form a community of their own, right? A world of their own. That's never been my thing. My thing is I'm always encouraging and bringing people to embrace the world, not to become a separate island of your own. Because what's the point creating a world of your own? There's really no point. And after all, the Creator's creation is wonderful, you don't have to create something. We have a center, that's different. But creating a community and a city is a different thing.
Someone asked me, Sadhguru J. Krishnamurti was a master of his intellect. Rajneesh was a master of controversy. What are you? I said, I'm a master of chaos I know how to harness chaos. So, every master had his own way. This is not something that a thinking mind, a logically correct mind, particularly a Western mind, could understand. How do all these people fit together? This is because there is no right and wrong. The question is only about, has it worked for you or not? If it has worked to evolve you into a higher state of being, it doesn't matter whether it's right for me or not, whether it agrees with me or not. If it doesn't agree with me, there's always another way for me. So this is a fantastic outcome of generations and generations of enlightened beings. Each one of them, unhindered by what the previous one had said, explored his own way, expounded his own path, never in conflict with the one before him or the ones before him. So this is the nature of exploration, that it's not about right and wrong, it's about just making it happen. Is the white flower the most beautiful one or the red flower the most beautiful one? Such questions don't arise out here. Such questions have come from cultures which are steeped in morality, as to something has to be good and something has to be bad. In this state of making something right and making something wrong, there is no way a spiritual process can happen, because essentially spiritual process means all-inclusiveness. If you cannot embrace everything the way it is, if you have to accept some and reject some, then there will be no spiritual process. You will only have morality, no spirituality.
So, really concise answer there by Sadhguru. Juxtaposed with my fumbling, nervous answer, how about we just sit with both of those? Yeah, I think something that just popped into my mind after listening to that, which was very beautiful and I really resonate and agree with, is that, everything can just exist. The whole story about Osho can just exist. Anything he may have done wrong, in quotations, can just exist. That can all exist, and his books can exist, and his books can open you if they open you. And if they don't open you, they don't, and you move on. So that was a sweet answer. And we'll continue to explore all of this together. This whole podcast is open-ended. There are no conclusions. There's no beginning. There's no end. It's just an active exploration. Now, one more thing we're going to address in this episode, and my neighbor down there is playing the trumpet, which I really enjoy, actually, is a question from Caroline that I wanted to address. This question came in a while ago, but I'm just getting to it. And here's the question. I'm curious about your experience with physical pain and mindfulness. I have chronic pain that I deal with daily, and sometimes it feels like a roadblock for my spiritual journey. I try to observe and detach myself from the pain, but I haven't really been able to yet. It's a cloud I can't seem to dissolve. I'm able to practice this with negative emotions / emotional pain, but physical pain has been harder for me. So, thank you, Caroline, for your question. I'm not going to be able to speak to this directly because I don't experience any sort of chronic pain, but I do have experience meditating on the body, kind of like realizing that I am not my body. I've had a trippy meditation experience in that regard. And I have gone through pain, physical pain in my life, as we all have, although I'm sure it's a different experience to have daily pain, right? And I think largely this exploration is going to be your own, but I'm happy to share what I can. So the first thing I'd like to say, which I think you're already hitting at in your question, is that like there is a way to fully realize that we are not our bodies. And actually the Waking Up by Sam Harris app is something that began to teach me this, because during some of those guided meditations, when I was listening to those meditations, he would say things along the lines of, okay, now just observe what it feels like to have a hand. Like as we're walking around, we just kind of know that we have a hand, right? But what if you really pay attention to what it feels like to have a hand? Like really dive into that. What is it that is telling your brain that you have a hand? There's kind of this feeling of tingling in that area. Maybe if you're doing a mudra, you could feel your fingertips touching. But the more and more you focus on this, it's like there really isn't much there in your consciousness telling you that you have a hand. If you really pay attention to it very closely, there is some tingling, there is the sensation of touch, but you can almost cause the outline of your hand to dissolve, right? And if everything in your consciousness is in the space of consciousness, so too is the sensation of having a hand, right? And your brain takes these tinglings, this feeling of touch, and simply the knowledge that we have a body, that we are used to this knowledge that we have a body, and we create the sensation that we have a hand and that is my hand. But when you pay close attention and you're meditating, you realize all that there is a sensation of hand. There is no, this is not my hand. There's just sensation, and now there's a visual sensation telling me I have a hand, but it's not, there's nothing beyond sensations that the brain is then taking and telling yourself that you have a hand, right? And so you can apply this to your whole body. Why do I know I have a body? Like really pay attention to that. And this is where my really trippy meditation experience came in. Totally sober. I was meditating. I was actually guiding a friend through a meditation. And I was doing this body meditation. I was like, okay, what does it feel like to have a body? Like you feel that your head is kind of this weight on top of your shoulders. And what's it like to have shoulders? I feel these Like if I think about my consciousness as like this oval, I kind of feel these two like weights over in the bottom corners. And then what's it like? What do my legs feel like? There's tingling. And then I'm kind of losing the shape of my body. There's just a bunch of tingling. And I remember what happened to me as I went down this path in meditation is I became a ball of light kind of floating in this static space, and I had no body. Like I was just purely the awareness and there was no body. That was a pretty trippy meditation for me. And really what was cool about it is like, oh, this awareness that I am not my body. And I've applied this lesson to physical feats like running. I ran 10 miles for the first time a few weeks ago. And I think when you're performing a physical feat, usually we think that we are doing it, right? We think that we are running. But when you run a certain amount of miles, you can almost slip into that observer seat and just notice that you are running. There is running happening, but you're not doing it. Your body has literally taken over the process, and you can just be there in your mind at rest while your body is going through an intense physical feat, and you're just watching it. I remember around mile 7, like I was tapped out, but then I decided to try to shift into the observer seat and just watch my body do the rest, and it worked. Like my mind was telling me to stop, but my body was still running. And I just tried to stay in that observer seat as much as possible. And I was like up there very calmly while I was breathing heavy and my body was working hard. I was up there very calmly being like, wow, like look at my body doing this thing. Like I think it's actually going to go to 10 miles. Like it's not really me doing it, but I think it's going to go to 10 miles. So that was almost like a hack I did to push myself to that 10-mile mark, even though like my mind had put this limitation and there was exhaustion coming, but I was almost able to make this separation. It's interesting, right? Because like the body does have wisdom, and if the body is telling me to stop running, it's probably for a good reason, right? And like, why would I push it past that? But in this case, I did, and it was cool, and it was trippy, and it helped me really fully understand this lesson that I am not my body. This is not so much about pain, but I think a lot of people that struggle with like beauty standards are struggling with an over-identification with the body. But if you do these meditations and really come to know yourself, come to know that you are not your body, it's like, how can there be what this looks like is not really a reflection of this ego version of me. There's just this body, and there's certainly a link here, right? It's like, besides in that sort of meditation that I described, like my awareness is centered around this body. Like there is these tingling sensations of the body. And if I look down, I see this body, and it's consistent over my lifetime. So like there is a link there, but there's an awareness of this body coming in, right? So it's not me, and it's not totally representative of me. Just breathing. Obviously, I can use this body to kind of express the soul, and I can dance, and I can write and paint and do and take actions, right? And embrace people. So there's certainly a body soul link, and there's a connection, but it's not me. So bringing it back to pain, it's like, and what I experienced in the running, it's like, yeah, there is a way to separate. You can say it like, I'm in pain, but then you can shift back and say, I'm aware of pain, right? the observer, the awareness in you cannot possibly be in pain. The awareness is always peaceful, like I described in that run. Chronic pain seems like a tough one, and my heart goes out to you for dealing with that, because like I know that like when my body is well in tune, I do feel like this spirituality, it's like when you don't have to think about the body, that's when you can really dive into the spirituality. But I would like, for you, I would wonder like, how can I use this somehow to access my spirituality? It's like on the spiritual journey, there does need to be a total acceptance of the present. And if there's pain, right? And same goes, as you said, for emotional things. It's like, if there's depression, there's depression. We don't want to be pushing things away. We want to be aware of things, right? Yeah. I would like experiment with that pain during meditation, like go into it as much as you can. Like try that separation maybe, but also like, I don't know, I'm curious, like what if you just I think Sam Harris would say, like, what if you like tunneled your awareness in on that pain, or like, almost like a pinpoint awareness on that pain, like what would happen to it then? And, trust the wisdom of the body. I don't know if there's an answer here, but there's a little, oops. There's a little open exploration. And I think that's probably going to be it for this episode. No reading update. I'm still reading Intuition by Osho. It's pretty good. Again, it's not a mind blower like Intimacy was, but, still chugging along. There's good stuff in there. Still writing a lot. Maybe I'll talk more about this. I do want to kind of talk about like manifestation and like how my life is really changing as a result of my spiritual journey. And like just a quick share is that like I think I want to become like a certified meditation instructor, and it's just cool to be having these dreams and visions for my life that have opened up so much because I've let go of so many things that weren't aligned for me. There's like so much more space now, and I'm getting really excited that I'm like stepping into my purpose, and I'm seeing all these exciting and joyous changes coming into my life. And yeah, it's very beautiful. And this like, this podcast is like part of my groove, and it's all super cool. Yeah. So how cool would that be? Certified meditation instructor, maybe do classes in New York City, maybe incorporate, I obviously don't need a certification. That's just a piece of paper, but I would love to like train with somebody and learn how others teach and see how I could be a better teacher. And I feel like it would be cool. And maybe I won't totally wait for the training to happen to do this, but like incorporate guided meditations into, I don't know, whether it be in person or a part of the Patreon or publicly online, something like that. I think that could be cool, guided meditations. I like the idea of like the way I serve the world being to help people like awaken, like step into the present moment, being a teacher of presence. I saw that Eckhart Tolle, I'm starting to get advertisements for this now, right? Eckhart Tolle, the man himself, is doing a teacher of presence training. And I was super intrigued, but I don't think that one's aligned for me. It's like in Canada and maybe a little too expensive. I feel like I'm going to do one locally, but so that's exciting. And this was an interesting episode because I feel like I was really tense during the Osho thing. But I'm glad, and I almost wish, I'm like, I've got a problem with my Wi-Fi. I like almost wish this could be like a live back and forth. Like this one feels like a conversation, and these podcasts are conversations, but it would be interesting if we were all in the same room to talk about this topic, you know, because it's like I'm not able to feel what my words are doing, you know, to you, the listener. But the comments are open, right? I want to continue. I'm practicing this, right? I was nervous to say all this, but I said it anyway because this is a safe space, a supportive spiritual community. So if you have any thoughts about anything that was said in this episode, or any questions about something you're going through on your path, on your spiritual journey, please feel free to share it. I think I'm on like when it comes to like in-depth questions left on the Patreon, I think I'm up to like a 100% response rate on the podcast. So I like this idea of like being students together, being students of the truth together. So please, let's continue creating a safe space for expression, right? Where we can explore together. So leave all your questions if you have any thoughts. And I almost don't want to leave because the first part felt so not centered, you know? The Osho talk felt so not centered. I felt a little defensive, and it felt like I wasn't really here. And then I feel like I'm here now, which is interesting. And I like almost want to stay here. And it's all very interesting. Life is very beautiful. That's the goal, right? It's to see the beauty of life and to experience the joy of life. Just to see it clearly. We want to see the truth. I've been drawing on my iPad more. It's really fun. All right. Oh, something that's been really good is like I actually don't care if my like TikTok videos flop anymore, and like the journey I was telling you about turning off comments on social media, like that's a big part of it. It's like, oh, like what's important is so clearly me just telling the truth and expressing my true creativity. Like that's what's important. And like it doesn't matter what happens after that. It's like, yeah, that's becoming very clear. And I would like delete videos that flopped like for a long time, for many years, like until like maybe 1 to 2 months ago I finally stopped doing that. And I feel even if a video gets like 25 views, like I don't think I'll feel anything, you know. Maybe I'll feel a little something, but it's different now. There's more. My strides are much more confident. I feel like I'm moving forward much more confidently, and it's like there's much less need for external validation, and it's really cool. And I'm just really trusting. I just officially like canceled all my brand deals. There's no more, period. When I last talked about it, I was hanging on to one, I'm not gonna lie, but I fully canceled it. And there's more space now. There's more space for what is aligned to come in, because I'm saying no to what is not aligned. And that is a huge key of manifestation. If you keep saying yes to what is not aligned out of fear, you're taking up space, and what is aligned is not going to have room to come in. But if you start saying no to things that are not aligned for you, then there's space for what is aligned for you to come in. And that's how you manifest the life of your dreams. All right. Have a good one.